We got some potatoes out of the ground. This is probably the latest I've ever dug potatoes for our spring crop of potatoes here in Raleigh. May was just so cool that it slowed them down, just slowed them way down. So we ended up getting, I don't dig them all because we leave some in place over there, and within the summertime, the nighttime temperatures start to cool off, the days get shorter, they'll come back and give us a fall crop as well. And every single time I dig over there, I'm digging a little deeper. These potatoes really don't like our clay-based soil. So we're 5 years into this project of composting over there next to the vegetable garden and digging that. We had done them in bags for the first 3 or 4 years, if you've been following along with the channel. Had pretty good success with it, but the problem with the bags being above the ground in a really hot year, it's really hard to keep up with the watering, and we'd have a bumper crop, and then the next year, virtually nothing when we flip the bags over, just because seasonal changes. The soil definitely has less of those seasonal change, at least insulates it somewhat from seasonal change. And then this year, April was like kind of hot, and then all of a sudden May was kind of cold. It wasn't cold, but it was cold for May. The first day of June was 70 degrees out here, 69 degrees for a high, which is crazy. And then since then it's been 100 and so on and so forth. So it finally killed them back. Dug up some potatoes this morning. Steph and Griff and I are gonna go wander the neighborhood, see if there's anything interesting in some gardens around the neighborhood. Before we do, here's a look at an amaryllis that's blooming in the garden right now. Usually it's earlier in the season when they bloom here in the garden, but again, it was so cool in May, it put things slightly off. We've gotten a lot of rain, like a lot of rain in the last, so, I showed this butterfly bush off. You will have seen a video of this butterfly bush looking perfect. It has been beat up. Like last night, we probably had 2 inches of rain, and it literally is beating the perennials down, beating the flowers off of things. We do have a ton of hummingbirds out here. Probably won't catch one on film because they tend to not come out while I'm standing out here running my mouth, but earlier in the season, I'd see one here or there. I think those were the passer-throughs. The ones who have moved in, the resident hummingbirds are here now, and they're in a war back here in the back garden. But our perennials could use a day without a 2-inch rain, without raindrops this big around hitting them, and because it's just flattening them to the ground. But we're gonna walk around the neighborhood, see if there's anything interesting. Usually we can find something to talk about that's in flower or not, or just interesting here in the middle of summer. Let's go. This is probably the most common overall crepe myrtle planted in our area, in most areas, is Natchez. Natchez is all things crepe myrtle. So it has this kind of weeping habit. It's very floriferous. I mean, it's one of the longer blooming of the crepe myrtles. Crepe myrtles bloom a long time during the summer, but this one has had rounds of flowers already that have finished. I can see forming the seed up in here. I think you can see that, and then it's put on a little bit of additional growth, so it'll flower a little bit beyond that. And of course, then you get the beautiful red exfoliating bark down at the bottom of this one. This one was single trunked right at the ground, and then it's multi-trunked about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. So it's kind of both in some way. It's got some old pieces, intercrossing branches up in it, definitely need to be cleaned out. But the main thing is so many of these crepe myrtles in this neighborhood are planted right under the power line, and this one is no exception. It is probably 4 feet up through that power line, and at some point, for sure, Duke Energy is going to hire somebody to come through here, and they're absolutely going to butcher this tree because that's their style. They'll cut they'll cut it on that side, and they'll cut it on the top, and it'll be whatever shape that is when it's done. But great trees, but there are crepe myrtles that you could probably keep in this space that only get 12 feet tall. But this happens to be one that will get 35 or 40 feet tall, probably, if they're just allowed to in time. So, keep that in mind, right tree, right place, because hopefully you're planting a tree for the long term, in a garden like this. These are small, fairly small lots. If you come to the open garden, you know how small the lots are in this neighborhood. You only get 1 or 2 spots probably where you could plant a tree, so, putting one up under a power line that's going to grow up into the power line takes one of those spots away, and then it's going to get butchered in the future. This is an interesting paper bark maple, Acer griseum. I really love these trees. I'm not a giant maple fan in general because a lot of them, especially the red maples like Acer rubrum, have surface roots. And this one I don't really see any surface roots out there, but it was put into the turf area right there, and it's kept it from growing. Really, it's kind of stunted because this thing's been here like 20 years now, and it's a decent size, but it really hasn't grown as much as it probably should have over that amount of time. You see the paper bark on it though, so similar, showing off that crepe myrtle with the exfoliating bark just a minute ago. There's a reason this one's called a paper bark maple. I love the foliage on this. It's just of all the maples that I would plant in the garden outside of like Japanese maples, this one I would plant one of these. But again, I think any tree you're planting really needs a dedicated bed space. I mean, I would say the vast majority of the trees that get planted in new subdivisions, the trees are just plopped in the front lawn, and now they're left competing against one another for nutrients, for everything. Sometimes it can make the trees grow a little faster if you're fertilizing your grass, watering your grass, that kind of thing. And sometimes, almost has stunted this one, really. But interesting tree. It's not one we see in every garden, so we thought we'd show it off. There's a colony of sassafras, and when I say a colony, it's coming up because a larger one was cut down a few years ago because it's up under the power lines. But it did not kill it. It just colonized it, basically. It made suckers all over the place, all over this area. And they've come back, most of them are around 6 or 8 feet in height over the last 3 years since that was done. Of course, this gets that beautiful orange color, has that incredibly unique leaf. These are native to like almost the entire eastern part of the United States, from Canada down to the Gulf Coast, and have been used in all kinds of human purposes since Europeans got here, and even before. I mean, it's used in root beer, it's used in Cajun cuisine, it's used in all kinds of human activities. So it's been an important tree for that. It's just, we're in a neighborhood that's just basically almost fully developed, but this happens to be a wooded corner, and occasionally we film something on this corner because there is an interesting collection of some native plants back in this space. An older gentleman that owns this lot on this corner. It will unfortunately be 5 houses probably or more at some point, unfortunately. But for now, there's a native magnolia back there. We showed off maple leaf viburnum back there just a few weeks ago in a video, the sassafras on the corner. So one little spot left in the neighborhood, and it hasn't not been overrun with the English ivy and a lot of the other invasives that we see in any other place that's not maintained in this neighborhood. This person has several Clethra out by the road. There are some pink ones and some white ones and several different varieties out here. I wouldn't know which ones they are necessarily. This one's like a kind of a pink and white at the same time. Seed has actually formed on some of those. This was one of our great natives that gets so many different pollinators visiting it. We are out here filming at 8 in the morning, and it rained 2 inches last night, so the pollinators are definitely not out yet. And you can see how the shrub is actually bent over to the ground, basically waiting for the foliage to dry off so it can stand back up later in the day. And then just every kind of pollinator will be on these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and they really haven't suckered at all. I don't know if they're cleaning the suckers up on them. Typically, they also haven't done a lot of top pruning on these. They've put them in a space where they're allowing them to get to full size. So I think any of that top pruning would probably be the encouragement to make it colonize a little bit more. So maybe that's part of the reason it hasn't colonized, is they're just letting them grow. So it hasn't felt the need to colonize. But there's no better pollinator plant than this. And this one's out in this road doesn't have a heck of a lot of sun really, except for right at the road edges all the way down. So great plant for that. It'll have great fall color, just all the things. There are smaller growing Clethra out there now. So you can have much smaller growing, more compact, maybe slightly more ornamental. If you're in a neighborhood that, requires the plants to look a certain way or whatever, you can find more tidy looking Clethra varieties than some of the old ones. But ultimately these will get 8 to 10 feet, something like that. Great fall color, bloom a long time, and bloom midsummer. So there are not a lot of plants that would be native and check off the box for summer, midsummer to late, to early fall flowering. like these Clethra do. Typically when we find these in the wild, they're sitting in water, but they're totally adaptable to our ornamental landscapes as well. This is a garden we filmed in the past, but they have one of the original flamethrower red, they got their flamethrower redbud a long time ago. And so it's really filled this space in beautifully. We had covered this garden in the past, and they planted some things out here, you know, to create a screen for the house, basically, that are, it's not just a row of something. So then there's a magnolia and a redbud and, you know, a hydrangea paniculata. Then they've got ground covers, you know, out here at the street. If you go back, I'll try to find this video and link it below. Really pretty garden back here. And then this is probably the most interesting thing, is he stakes this pokeweed up every year. This is, normally we're pulling these, and I'm sure this thing is seeding itself like crazy over here. But he ties this up to this no parking sign, or this 2-hour parking sign every year, and lets it grow, because it's a great pollinator plant, blooms like crazy. Unfortunately, very good at making seed. And so most people are pulling pokeweed as a weed. He's using it as a decorative plant that feeds the pollinators, and really is quite beautiful. And look how woody, basically, this thing can get over the course of a summer. You know, this is, I think you might even be able to hear that. It's just wild. Leaves are 12 inches long at this point. So this is a pokeweed that's being grown as an ornamental plant and being taken care of as an ornamental plant. And it's pretty. An update on this lot that has these 3 giant oaks where they took down 2 houses and they haven't started construction. There's 3 houses going back in this place, it looks like to me. But you can see this center oak, how they cut the soil down around it and piled some up on top of it. I think it's a combo of cut down and piled on. It's been 100 degrees a few days since then, and it's held up so far. We've gotten a lot of rain though. These oaks are pretty notorious for not liking a lot of compaction around their roots. So yeah, I just have no idea. I mean, this one is centered in the property, and if there are 3 houses going here, it seems like maybe that one has to come down anyway. The other 2, they didn't do really any damage around, other than the fact they ran heavy machinery over the roots and compacted it badly. So I don't know, I have no idea. But it does appear that at least in the short term, they're keeping them. I don't know. I don't know what this middle one looks like of the 3. Unlikely to ultimately make it. This is the result of these just kind of beating rains we're having, where you have the wind combined with that rain. This hydrangea paniculata is just kind of flattened out. Unfortunately, it's cracked a few of the branches on it. It's no big deal. These things come back from anything pretty much. But last year, I mean, it was really good structure on this one, holding them up all big and tall, but a few of those just absolute downpours with a little bit of rain. Just past some hydrangea arborescents. They were far enough into a person's yard I didn't want to film them, but doing the same exact thing. Smooth hydrangeas just weeped all the way to the ground. You know, it is a risk of them breaking themselves apart. Neither one of those hydrangeas are going to care, really, ultimately, if they go through some sort of damage like that. So if you do take some kind of damage on one of these, it's not that big of a deal. Next year, it'll be bigger, better, fuller. We'll cut these down. The hydrangea arborescens you cut to the ground in the wintertime. This one you can cut down to 2 feet in the wintertime. Luckily, the autumn minaret daylily decided to go that way as it leaned, and the Rudbeckia maxima. So luckily the wind was going that way. Otherwise, I think it would have flattened these really tall perennials as well. I mean, having other tall things next to them is helpful, you know, prevent them from having to go over. We have several perennials here in the garden that would be vulnerable to this. Probably having them more compact together, you know, all these things that get 6 or 7 feet tall will prevent some of that from happening. But luckily, it went that way and just leaned them up against the fence. We have this clerodendron, and it's not native to the area, and it's right on the edge of the new native garden over here. But we have kept it in place because it may be amongst the most visited plant for butterflies in our garden here. The flowers are just starting to open now. They're very fragrant. we'll see butterflies. I mean, this is, if I want to film butterflies in this garden during the summertime or take photos of butterflies, it's from mid-July now through the rest of summer on this Harlequin glorybower is the common name for this one. There's actually a lot of species of clerodendron. We've seen a couple over time. Ram's got a couple in her garden down in Athens, Georgia. Most of them, of the species, I think they were in the verbena family, now they're in the mint family. Some have been moved out entirely out of this genus, so this one's all over the place, like 150 species that are kind of all over the place, mostly from tropics. So there are very few that we could grow here in our Raleigh garden. They're tropical, Africa, Asia, tropical parts of the Americas is where you would find the different species of this. But there are a couple that we can grow in our temperate areas. And this particular one is, one that can be limbed up into a small tree. We passed one while we were walking on this tour. It's just too far back into the garden. Sometimes, it's like, can I walk back into that person? I don't want to walk into somebody's garden. We usually shoot things right along the road unless the person happens to be standing there. They have one that's 25 feet tall. It's 25 feet tall and 20 feet wide. Again, it is an invasive. We take up a few seedlings here in the garden ultimately, and probably should get rid of it, although it's not going to change the fact that the thing is all over the neighborhood. But it is our native. I mean, here's I didn't have to speak for very long before 2 butterflies have already shown up. It's wet this morning, so the flowers are just drying off, but the butterflies are heading in to sample these flowers. They must just be absolutely loaded because they just are hitting these flowers all day long. But anyway, interesting plant that is, semi-invasive. It's not English ivy invasive, back here behind me and the other invasives that are back here in these wooded areas. We don't see it like that, but again, seedling here or there. And I don't think, have we ever shown this thing off? It's been hidden back maybe one other time. It's hidden back here on the other side of the shop. And it's right on the edge of where the native plants are this way and the native combo plants are that way in the garden. So there you go. There's a few of the things in the neighborhood. It's midsummer, so there's not as much going on. It's kind of surprising this time of year when you do find something flowering outside of salvias and a few, herbaceous perennials like we have here in the, I've got a cover on a couple things here I'm trying to keep the rabbits off of. Perennials are blooming, as we would expect, midsummer, and a couple of shrubs, the hydrangeas, some of the hydrangeas still blooming, some of the things like Clethra, a few midsummer flowering things, and of course crepe myrtles are still going off, and this clerodendron right here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Is there anything that you kind of lean on? Because we go through this spring period of time where there's just flowers, 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 and then you get these really hot days midsummer. Is there something that from this midsummer point on that is kind of your go-to plant in your garden? Let us know in the comment section below this video. Thanks for watching.